Hi guys, Ryu here with another tutorial for Blender. I want to show you how to use different types of bevels with hard ups. What kind of bevels do we have and how to use them in different situations and what you can do with them, because bevels in hard ups are actually very powerful. So first of all, you got three types of bevels, as in you can bevel three different types of geometry or elements. So first of all, you got a standard bevel, which basically you can access by clicking on Geo and clicking on bevel and then moving your mouse left and right to adjust the profile, or simply scrolling your wheel to adjust segments. And to see the segments better, you can press Z to see the wireframe. So that's one example. Now, second thing which you can do, let's duplicate this cube, is you can bevel an edge. Now in bevel, if you want to bevel an edge, in Blender, if you want to bevel an edge, usually you go Ctrl B. The problem with it is that it's destructive. So now if I'm gonna go to Q menu and Ctrl click on mark, you can see that I can do the same thing. I mean, the bevel behaves in the same way like the bevel on a cube. I can scroll my wheel to add segments and move my mouse left and right to adjust the profile. Now, additional thing that you can do with bevels, if you press P, you can shift the profile of the bevel and make it go the other way, which is extremely cool if you want to create some interesting, cuts in geometry without using booleans, for example. Another thing that you can do with bevels, okay, is you can bevel a vert. Now, the reason why I like to bevel verts is because we can create cool stuff like cables with it, and with hard ups this is extremely easy. So I'm gonna delete that vert in the corner, introduce some more verts by extruding, go to Ctrl A and apply the scale. I'm gonna select all those verts and go to Q, Ctrl click on mark again, and you can see that I'm beveling this edge. I'm beveling the verts and making this whole sort of jaggedy line becoming more smooth. You can click P to introduce profile, and you can sort of curve it the other way if you want. So P works on verts as well. Let's apply this. And I said we can create a cable out of it. So if you go to Q and go to operations and curve extract, right? If you click on it and move your mouse to the left, you can see that you can introduce thickness to this cable. If you press 1 and S, right, you can add smoothness to it. So that's a cable. Now let's delete those and go back to our cube. Now if you press Q and go to bevel again, it will recall the bevel modifier and you can adjust it on the fly. On the left bottom here you can see the modifier is stuck. Now we only have bevel running on this cube, so there's just bevel showing up. On the right side, if you press H, you can hide or unhide the helper menu. It can be a bit intimidating at first, but you don't have to use all the functions, and also I'm gonna probably show you most of them, or the most important ones that you should know of. So first off, if you move your mouse left and right, you can adjust the bevel size. If you move your if you scroll your mouse up and down, you can adjust the segments, right? So let's say we want to create a chamfer. Now there are four different modes that bevel can offer. So first of all is a regular bevel, which is just introducing segments. Then if you press 1 and scroll to one segment, you're gonna have chamfer. If you press 2, you're gonna introduce bevel to your verts, and if you press 3, okay, you're going to have supporting loop cuts. So if you're going to scroll your mouse up to 2 segments, you can make it really thin and skinny. And now I can go to Ctrl 2 and add modifier that will subdivide the geometry. And if I apply them both, you can see that now I have a subdivided cube. So I don't have to manually add those edges. I can just do it with hard-ups. Let's go back. So we have a bevel going on the cube. Let's make it a bit smoother and introduce maybe more segments, like 9. Now, let's say I want to cut this cube, okay? And I want to cut it make it quite a, wide cut. You can see that we got artifacts, and the reason for it is that because what's happening is that the bevel on the edge of the boolean is the same size and resolution as the bevel on the cube. So now the bevels are overshooting. So if I choose the modifier, if I select the modifier and reduce it in its width, you can see that those artifacts are disappearing because now the bevels are not overshooting one another. But what if I wanted to keep the modifier on the cube, right? And have a different size of the bevel. What if I wanted to keep the bevel on the cube and have a different size of bevel on the boolean? Well, you can do that by simply adding another bevel to the bevel stack. And you can do it by pressing Ctrl, Shift, and clicking on bevel, pressing X, which will cut the bevel in half. And what I mean by that, it will cut the size of the bevel. So when I make a cut, you understand. You see the size of the bevel is half size of this main bevel. And now I got 2 bevels I can control. So if I go to bevel and move my mouse left and right, you can see I'm adjusting this bevel. And then you can see on the left bottom side here, you have now 3 items in the modifier stack. If I press Ctrl, I can shift to a second bevel, which is the main bevel. I can adjust it as well. You can adjust segments. So if I press Z, you can see that. You can adjust segments. You can change it into a chamfer, or you can change it into a bevel, and everything is live, okay? And I can switch between them, as many times as I want. Now, bevels occasionally will introduce problems like, sort of shading problems, even on a flat surface. And to combat this, very easy way to do this with hard-ups is go into Q and Alt-click on Sharpen, which will introduce a weighted normal modifier, which will fix all the shading issues. So if you see, if I turn this off, we got those weird lines going on. Maybe if I change the matte cap, you will see it better. There you go. See those lines here, and if I turn it on, the lines are gone. So that's how you fix shading issues with bevels. On curved surfaces it's a little bit more complicated, but that's a subject for another video. And now you can keep adding to this stack of bevels. So if I go to bevel and click on Ctrl Shift X, I'm going to introduce half size bevel based on the last bevel I added, which means this bevel here will be the half size of the bevel here, right? So now I got 3 bevels going on, and I can still adjust them the way I want. I can make it into a chamfer. I can go to this main bevel and change it into a chamfer if I want to. And what if I want to, for example, let's say I change my mind and I want to keep bevels on the, let me change this one too, because I shifted the profile to chamfer. There we go. So what if I wanted to keep those bevels here as bevels, and I wanted the main bevel to be a chamfer? So this one, right? How can I bevel these edges? If I press Ctrl and click on bevel, I will introduce bevel on top of the chamfered bevels. Now I got 4 bevels going on. So you can see hard-ups has a very powerful way of, offers very powerful tools that can solve all your bevel issues for any type of modeling, really. Let's talk about another way of adding bevels. there is another option that you can add bevels. It's called step. Now if I go to operations and click on step, the tooltip here will tell you what's happening. So you added a bevel based on angle, and it's a 50% of the size of the main bevel. So it's like adding, so it's like clicking on Control Shift bevel and then pressing X. That's what step does basically. Now again, I can, you know, shift between those bevels and adjust either one or the other. There you go. So I can still have control over two bevels. Another situation that's quite interesting, and another option that Hardops offers, is when you work on slanted geometry, and let's bevel this. Let's introduce another bevel here and actually slice it in half. So if I want to slice a bevel in half, all I need to do is press X and it will do it for me. So now you can see that we got this problem here, that the second bevel doesn't catch this edge. And the reason for it is that simply because the angle of this bevel is 60 degrees, and this angle here between the edge and this slanted face is just different. So what I can do about it is press A, and if I now scroll my mouse, you can see that I'm adjusting the angle. So see, the angle here is 44 degrees, which makes sense because it's about 45 degrees, right? And now my bevel catches all the edges. And again, I can switch between the bevels and adjust either this one or the main bevel. There are more things that you can do with bevels. So let's say that I wanted to move the bevel in a stack of modifiers. You can do it from the bevel menu. You can see that if you shift scroll, look at the left bottom side of my screen, I'm moving the bevel around the stack of modifiers. So you can easily do that by simply with Control you flip between the same type of modifiers. With Shift you move that modifier that was selected last in a stack of modifiers. Well, be careful with it because you can destroy your shading, but if you have problem with shading, you can fix it that way by simply moving modifiers around. Okay, another thing that you can do with bevels is control how control the clamping issue and bevel overshooting. Bevel overshooting is quite common, especially if you work on large bevels and dense geometry. Okay, so what do I mean by that? Let's bevel this edge. Let's make it inverse by pressing P, make it a little bit larger so we can see, adding a lot of loops. So you can see now we have a lot of loops, right? Press Control Sharpen to add smoothness to it. Now we can just add another bevel on top of it by pressing Control and clicking on bevel. Now, if I'm gonna push this bevel really hard, you can see that we gain some weird artifacts, and the reason for it is that because the bevel is catching, let me apply the first bevel. The bevel is catching these edges, okay? So in order to stop that from happening, you can press C, which will turn on clamping, and it will stop the bevel from overshooting. If you wanted to make this bevel any larger, you will need to remove these two edges, like that. And then you can, keep beveling deeper. But again, the bevel is catching this edge now, and that will not go any further. A last thing I want to show you is how to control a bevel that is running through edges angled in a way that the bevel doesn't catch them. So let me show you what I mean. Let's draw a simple shape by using the new Ngon function in box cutter. Maybe let's make it a little bit more shallow and with T, and double click it, and let's bevel it. Okay. Now you can see that the bevel doesn't catch these edges here. Actually, let's apply the weld and solidify modifier by clicking Smart Apply. So now we can see the edges. It doesn't catch these edges here, the four edges, and the bottom as well. So let's say I want to keep, I have other bevels going through that geometry, and if I introduce a different angle to this bevel, which I can do by either pressing Ctrl A to switch it between 60, toggle it between 60 and 30, or just scrolling down, pressing A and scrolling down to, you know, to catch these edges with a bevel. But let's say I cannot do that because I have different angles, different bevels going on, and if I did that, other pieces of geometry would be affected. So let's reverse it to 30, and let's approach it from a different angle, pun intended. So let's go to Control Sharpen. It doesn't sharpen all the edges, so we might need to manually sharpen these three. And you can see that the edges are sharpened, but the bevel doesn't catch them yet. So I'm gonna go here and change from angle to weight. Now all the edges are captured with by the bevel. Let's fix the shading here by adding weighted normals. Now the problem here is that the sharpen itself is causing a shading issue on these edges. What I mean by that is that if you go to main options in hardops, by default, when you apply sharp, you apply B weight, but vice versa, if you apply B weight, you apply sharp. So the way to deal with this is to first clear sharpen. Not C sharpen, where is it? Options, clear sharps, there we go. Clear sharps, keep the bevel on, and then change the options here and remove sharp from sharpen. So even if you click on sharpen, it will simply add only B weight to the geometry. Now if I switch the bevel from weight, from angle to weight, you can see that now I have beautiful smooth bevels going on across the geometry regardless the angle of the edges and surfaces. So that's how you fix the that problem where edges or faces are angled in a way that the bevel doesn't catch them. Now you can of course see that there are many more functions in here, and some of them are related to the modifier stack, some of them are a bit more advanced functions for bevels, for example, like, you know, applying bevel by shift enter, etc. But to be honest, I rarely use these. The most important ones that I showed you, the ones I showed you, and these are the ones I'm using in my daily workflow. Well, that's it from me, guys. Hope you enjoyed the vid, and I'll talk to you next time.